Hey, welcome to the Triads Part 1 video. This is going to be triads as chords. So what a triad is a three-note chord, hence the name, T-R-I, and the root word means that it has three notes in it. And the notes are the root, third, and fifth of the chord. So what that means is, for example, if you take a major scale and you just number all the notes in the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those are where the numbers come from. So it's the first note of the scale is the root. The third note of the scale would be, do, re, mi would be the third note. Do, re, mi, fa, so would be the fifth note. So those three notes are the notes that we're talking about. So for example, if you're playing a C major triad, it would be C, E, and G would be the notes that you're talking about. For this, what we're going to do here is we're going to learn the shapes and we're going to play them in certain ways so as that you can use them when the situation is, calls for you to play whatever it is, a particular key or whatever, okay? So basically what I like to do is start off in the key of F because you're starting on the first fret. This system is, you're gonna wind up learning them all in all the keys. But for example, like if you just played F major triads, they'd be like this. Position 1, so this is all going to be in the attached PDF. But what I'm doing is I'm playing, the three notes of the chord, and I'm using my pick. You don't have to do it like this, but what I do is I use my pick and my middle finger and my ring finger. So I'm getting all three notes to ring at the same time. This is something I've talked about in previous videos about the overtone series and how to play this instead of strumming it. If you want to strum it, go ahead. The point is, we're playing it as a chord, so we're playing all three notes it's somewhat together, right? So that or this, okay, and then we're going to this shape, and this shape. And what you might realize here is that some of these shapes look very similar to the open position chords on the guitar, which would be like C. This is something that you would learn very early on. D, right? E, A. So all of those chords are actually based on triads, but you're playing more than three notes. But a lot of them are doubled notes for the most part. So you in reality are only playing three notes. But if I play this E chord, I'm playing 6 notes, but I'm playing E. 3 of them are E's, okay? 2 of them are B's, and then 1 of them's a G sharp. So really, I'm only playing 3 notes. So what we're doing with this is we're only playing the 3 notes one time each. So back to the F, right? We're playing this, this, and this. So we have 4 kind of shapes that are in the first position. And I'd like to point out also that the first thing that you should do is try to learn where all the roots are in these shapes. Obviously, the optimal goal would be to learn where the third and the fifth is as well. So for some of the stuff later in the video, we're going to talk about that. But first, you should learn where all the roots are, because that's how we're going to move them around. So when I play these shapes, okay, F, F, and there would be an F here, but we're not playing that. So in this case, we're using these 2 notes as sort of like our anchor. So okay, next position would be here, and this looks just like a D chord that we normally would play here. But what I've done is now I'm playing it like this, so I'm actually barring right across the 5th fret, and I have my middle finger on the 6th on the B string. And you could do that, but for some of the stuff that we're going to do later, I would suggest trying to use the fingerings that I'm using in this video, because you won't be able to do some of the things that we're going to do. But basically, as a general rule of thumb for chords, what I like to teach is use as few fingers as possible to accomplish the goal of playing whatever chord it is that you're trying to play, because when you have free fingers, you can do other things with them. So instead of doing this, we're doing this, and then we go through the shapes this way. Right, so right away you could see if I had done this, I would have to move to that to do the second shape. When you do it my way, it's sort of effortless. You just add fingers. Okay, and there's your 2 F's in this area. So here we had our 2 F's here. Now we have our 2 F's here. The next position is going to be like this. Okay, So again, and I'm barring that, then I'm adding my third finger, and then my fourth finger, and something here, again, right, here's our Fs that we're actually playing. Okay, so we have our three main shapes, I guess you could call them, and then when you go up here, obviously, because of the nature of the guitar, you're just repeating. Okay, it's the same. Never play that, but it exists. So I'm not saying never play it, I'm saying I never play that. But so okay, those are the shapes. Now so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna take this, knowing that we know where the roots are, okay, and we're gonna move it around based on the circle of fourths or circle of fifths. So most people learn it as the circle of fourths. Sorry, circle of fifths, not to get confused. But that would be like C, G, D, and so on and so forth as we go around. And this is going to also be attached in some form, PDF form. But what the cooler thing to do actually is to go around the opposite direction. So if you're looking at it straight on, when you go to the right, usually it's, or clockwise, right? It would be the circle of fifths. When you go to the left, or counterclockwise, the circle of fourths. The circle of fourths is a little bit more usable in terms of the music I play, in terms of if you're going to do anything that is like modern improvisation, because that's the way the chords move, is more in fourths. If you follow like a 2-5-1 progression, which is like the most common, you know, jazz chord progression, it moves actually in fourths. Okay, so here's what you do. So we get our metronome going. You guys know I love the metronome. Okay, and you play through. I'm not going to do the whole thing in the interest of time because there's other things I want to talk about, but you would play through like, I go back down. Now I'm on B flat, because that's the next thing in the circle of fourths, right? Next, E flat. And so on and so forth. Alternatively, you could just do where you're running one shape. So that would be something like this if I wanted to go. Okay, so I went on to A flat. What I was doing there is I was just playing one shape, and you could start that anywhere, and you go around the circle of fourths that way. So there's many different things you do, but the point is, what we're doing here is we're trying to not just do, right, just go up chromatically through the shapes, because that's really, there's no thought involved there, and you could do that and still not know what the notes are, which is something that everything that we're doing here is sort of leading in that direction. You really do have to know what the notes on the guitar neck are in order to play any kind of music that's like beyond beginner kind of level music. So basically that would be what you would do with your major triads, just getting started and learning how to play in all 12 keys in that same manner. The next thing would be to go to the minor. So for that, the formula for that would be root, flat third, fifth. So going back to our C major example, that would be like root would be C, the third being flat would be E flat, and then the G would still be the fifth. So it's the same formula for any key. Back to F now. So we had before. Now is kind of like what I was talking about earlier about knowing other notes in the triad besides just the root. So this happens to be our third, what we're going to do is we're going to lower that 1 fret, flat it, so that we have minor now. We're going to do that every time there's an A, natural in this case. And I'm not really thinking about every one of these notes. I'm kind of thinking shapes, which is what I'm encouraging you to do. So the minor shape would be, whoops. Okay, so that would be in position, the first position of it. Okay, the next one. Some of these I use more than others. When we get to the minor, I tend to use the major ones a lot, but practice these a little bit myself. Whoops. Okay, so again, same thing as the major shapes, but these are minor, so the third is flat, and we would go around the circle of fourths the same way with the same. So the next formula would be for a augmented triad, which is root, third, sharp, fifth. So if we go back to our C example, that would be C, E, and G sharp. But since we're in F, the notes are F, A, and C, so we're going to sharp the fifth, so it's going to be F, A, and C sharp. So every C, we're going to raise by 1 fret. Okay, so you can see what I did there. It kind of just rolls right down. Now, the cool thing about augmented and diminished triads and everything pretty much that's augmented and diminished is they all repeat. And in this case, augmented things repeat in major thirds. So you don't have to learn any other shapes. It's just this. And then we take, okay, so any 5 fret move on the guitar is a major third like that. So we just do the exact same thing. And we go up again, right? So same thing. Right, and so on and so forth. Those, I mean, there's a place for those. I don't spend a heck of a lot of time practicing those, but just, you know, that could be something that you do. Because like I've talked about earlier, something that I'm always trying to do is find my own sound, you know, and I encourage everybody to kind of do that. That could be something that's good for you. For diminished, it would be good to think about it in terms of minor triad, where you're flatting the fifth. So if we were talking about C minor, it would be C, E flat, G flat the fifth. It would be C, E flat, G flat. Since we're in F though, because we're trying to keep it around the first fret, it's going to be F, A flat, and C flat, which doesn't really exist. It's actually B. So I don't really like to start off with this one in the first fret, but since I'm kind of doing that for the other ones, I'm going to do it for this one. The reason why is because I want you to see the shapes, and I mean, you probably still can, but I like to not use open strings because you don't have to use a finger to play it, and it gets you in a position where you're playing something that's not the same thing all over the neck, and I don't like to do stuff like that. But so it would be like this, okay? And again, this is something that would repeat in minor thirds. So I said the augmented triads repeat in major thirds. These repeat in minor thirds. So on the guitar, a minor third, if you stand on 1 string, would be 4 frets. So we're going to take that shape. The only thing is, like I was saying before, when we move it up, it becomes this, which, again, you have to account for the open string. Okay, and that would move all over the neck, and you would practice that the same way that you practiced all the other shapes. So now, getting into some of the other things that I like to do with triads, the biggest one I would say is embellishments. So embellishments are like what you saw me playing in the beginning of the video, which was a huge thing that Jimi Hendrix did, and I'm sure there was probably a few other people that had done things like that around that time, but he was kind of the first guy, I think, that really like made it, I guess, part of the vernacular of like rhythm guitar playing. So what we do when we do that, and particularly I like to think about a lot of these things in major, although you could do them in all the other shapes to some extent, I guess, at some point. But what happens with the embellishments are, particularly like I said in major, you would take the root, and the embellishment for the root would be to go up to the second degree of the scale. So the 2, or sometimes called the 9, without getting too much into music theory. If you continue on up, if I played, that's 8 notes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I keep going into the next octave, that would be the 9th note, but actually in reality, in the key of C, that note is a D, which is the 2nd note of the scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is D, okay? So back to our example in F again, though. All the Fs would go up a whole step to G, because in the C major scale, a whole step up is the 2nd note, so it's the same for every major scale. It's a whole step up from the root. That's the embellishment for the root, all right? And these are based on, to some extent, I guess, trills, which go back to, you know, classical music. So like a trill is always, you're going up to the next scale degree. In a major scale, that would be root to the 9. All right, the 5th would go up to the 6th or the 13th, and again, when I'm saying 13th, it's the same thing. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So in the key of C, that would be A. In the key of F, it happens to be D, so it's actually the 6th note up, so that would be, okay. And the 3rd goes up to the 4th. Now, you got to be careful with this one, because in music theory, the 4th is in a void note in a major chord. It sounds like this. I actually think that's an interesting sound, but theoretically, it doesn't work according to the books. But it's really worse when you play it like down here. If I played, even that I think is kind of interesting sounding, but that's because when you listen to this for, you know, 30 or 40 years, you kind of start to look for other sounds, and things become interesting that aren't maybe quote unquote correct. But the 3rd goes to the 4th. Okay, and again, you're going to use that, so okay, so we have something like this now. Right now, what we do is we look for every one of these shapes. How can I do that on every one of them? So if I was going like to the next one here, so, and you could, this is where you can find things that maybe you have a particular interest in, or a sound that you're looking for. And what we're doing is we're playing at least 2 or 3 of the notes of the triad. So it's either a double stop if it was 2. But the thought process is like, what is that? You know, and you just see me doing that. That's what I'm thinking about. So I'm thinking about, okay, thinking about this shape. I know that I'm playing an F, and I'm thinking about in some sort of embellishment. So, right, I'm just playing the top 2 notes. I could play the top 3 notes. Right, so like the one song I could think of is like Axis Bold as Love, when he's like, that right there. Right, he's just embellishing the root to the 9th. Okay, that was just one example. The other one I was doing would be from Wind Cries Mary, right? Another one he does in that one. Okay, now that one actually is going the other way. So it's going from A down to G, which is the 9th and F. Now, that would be tricky to do that, though, somewhere else. And again, it's not super translatable into other keys because we're doing open strings. So what I like to use that shape would be something like this. So you can kind of get that same effect, but that's, again, in the next shape up. Okay? So I'm playing 2 notes here, and that's the 5th going again to the 6th or the 13th. I'm playing the root in the 5th. And then I come back down. And really, we're trying to go into these chord tones. So I'm going into A, I went up to the B flat, and then because I said earlier about using less fingers, I'm able to grab this too. Okay, and you just sort of experiment, but the idea is trying to play the notes that are above and below, I guess you could say. Not always above, but above and below the chord tones is what we're trying to do. Up here, so this shape kind of lends itself nicely to doing this because you're playing 3 notes with 1 finger. So, whoop, not that. Okay, and again, you could almost look at that like a pentatonic thing. But I like to think of it more as a chord thing because it's something that you're doing for your rhythm guitar playing, and it's a little bit more maybe movable if you think about it like that. So that's kind of like the whole idea with embellishments. It's a little bit of experimentation, but I would say that a lot of it is probably on the middle of the like the neck, the middle of the chords you're playing out of the shapes, right? So that would mean like this, like there's not a, I mean, that's pretty much it that you're going to see on the low strings. And again, that's just my opinion. That's what I've come across in, you know, the last 30 plus years. But for you to experiment and find your own things, that's really what I'm looking for you to do there. So that was embellishments. The other thing that you could do with triads is to experiment with playing all 12 root notes underneath, right? So of course, like F is always going to work with this, right? What if I played, you know, if I played, let's see here, what about E flat? If I played E flat with it, so that would kind of have this sound. How am I going to do this? Okay, so what you're creating there, in this case, happens to be like a Lydian sound, and again, without getting too much into the theory of it, it's a sound that works. It sounds pretty, and that's sort of what I think you might go for before you worry about what the theory is. Just try to get some different sounds happening. Okay. Let's see, another one you could do is like, maybe you could try, I don't know, C. Right, so it has that. It's hard to play all these over a root, but you don't have to play all the shapes, I guess is probably what I should have said. Is right, so you don't have to go through the whole. You could just do a couple to just to simulate the sound, right? So E flat, you could do this. Or C instead of just the regular root F. What if I played D? That works. That's just a straight up D minor, but if you're thinking about triads, which I like to do because they're simple, and sometimes keeping something simple is the best way to do it. There you get a okay. So I just did them all there. And again, I'm not trying to play every single little 3-note shape, but that just gives you an idea. And all I did there was I just went down. It was probably the most obvious thing, is just to go down an F major scale. Gives you a lot of usable things that you could do. You know, and then some of the odd ones that don't necessarily work or could work in certain types of improvised music, like jazz, that maybe has a little bit more complicated chords. It's a way that you could use something you already know to play through changes, negotiate changes, whether they be playing rhythm chords or solo, which is something that we're going to talk about in part 2. But that's just some stuff for you to work with right now on triads as chords. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe, like, Comments would really help, actually, because you know, it gives me something to maybe make you know, a different video or something that you might want to learn or have a question about that I could help you out with. But anyway, have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.